Ever had a boss who acted like you weren't allowed to quit? I spent close to a year working at a retail store I won't name yet, but let's just say the warning signs were there from the first month. I was hired part-time with promises of stable hours, reasonable expectations, and managers who care about their team. It didn't take long to learn that none of that was true, especially when it came to the general manager. The first major red flag came on a random afternoon. I was on the register, ringing up customers, doing exactly what I was scheduled to do. Suddenly, my personal phone buzzed. It was the GM calling in an irritated tone, demanding to know where I was and why I wasn't on the floor. I literally paused mid-scan, stared at the phone, and said, "I'm at the register." She was in her office the whole time. She just didn't bother to walk out and check. From there, it felt like a snowball rolling downhill. One evening, I stayed an extra 15 minutes to help close properly. When I asked her to add the missing time to my time card, she waved me off and said it was too late to fix. It wasn't. She just didn't want to touch the system. Every time she needed someone to cover a shift or stay late, she called me personally. If I said no, she'd drag out a long, manipulative, "Are you sure-y?" as if saying it slow would pressure me into giving up my plans. She ignored boundaries in every possible way, especially when it came to my health. I have a terminal illness, something she knew from day one. I tried to manage it quietly, but some days were harder than others. Once, I had a fever of 101 degrees and still came in because I thought I'd get in trouble. Instead of telling me to go home, she wrote me up. Another time, she told me to be mindful of my illness, like I could somehow forget it while living through it every day. But the issue that pushed everything over the edge was my schedule. For months, I politely asked for more morning shifts because my symptoms get significantly worse later in the day. I gave her exact availability, when I could start, when I needed to end, and why. She nodded, smiled, and said it was totally doable. And for a while, it was. Then suddenly one week, there was a closing shift on my schedule. I brushed it off as an accident. The next week, there were 3 more, even later than before. And then they scheduled me to close at night and open the next morning, giving me less than 8 hours to get home, eat, shower, rest, and come back. Interestingly, the GM never had to do that, but somehow she expected it from the rest of us. It was clear what was happening. They were testing how far they could push me. That's when I decided I was done. I wasn't going back for a 5th conversation about availability. I wasn't begging for basic respect, and I wasn't letting someone else dictate how much my health mattered. I told one of the assistant managers, the one I actually liked, that I was resigning. She understood immediately. I told her I didn't want to talk to the GM about it because she'd try to guilt me into staying. She agreed and promised not to tell the GM until after my shift ended, so I wouldn't get cornered. The GM eventually found out, but apparently chose not to inform the rest of the management team. I know this because the morning after my final shift, I got multiple calls from other managers asking where I was. Then the GM herself called me during dinner. I missed the call, so she texted, "Just checking in and making sure you're okay." I didn't believe it for a second. The next morning, another manager texted me again, asking if I was coming in. That's when it hit me. The GM hadn't told anyone I'd quit because she wanted a chance to talk me out of it. She wasn't concerned. She was strategizing. Later that day, I called her back. She greeted me with a soft, overly sympathetic tone and said she was sorry I was going through this. Then she asked if I wanted medical leave paperwork instead of resigning. I told her firmly that I was stepping away to take care of my health and that my last day had already passed. Her response nearly made my jaw drop. She said, "I'll check in occasionally. Just let me know when you're ready to come back." There it was, the assumption that I was still hers to schedule, hers to call, hers to pull back in when it suited her. She wasn't listening. She wasn't accepting it. She was simply waiting. I didn't argue. I didn't list every time she ignored my boundaries or dismissed my health. I just said, "Okay," knowing full well that she will never receive that call. In her mind, I might still be an employee. In reality, I walked away the moment she made it clear my well-being was never a priority.